Could you talk a bit about how to best dissolve the sense of solidity and heaviness? Usually we only want to dissolve the nasty feelings, the heavy feelings, the solidity. But when we feel really nice and bright, we're not so interested in dissolving things. When we found our soulmate, we're not so interested in dissolving the relationship construct. But when our ex has left us and we're devastated, we'd love to dissolve the solidity of that relationship construct. So first of all, let us admit that we're a little biased, that we prefer pleasure over pain. We prefer comfort over risk and threat. And we have defined certain sensations, certain perceptions, because really everything is a perception in awareness. We cannot really state anything else. All we can really say about anything we've ever experienced is that it is. Hello, good day. Can you all hear me? Okay. So as you probably know, today is going to be dedicated to your questions. I think it's good to have a session like this in between every so many sessions with more intense or heavy discourse, just to see what's up for you guys, to give a little bit more space to get your questions clarified, to bridge the gaps and so on. So I'll start with a few of the most upvoted questions in Slido, and then I'll open it up for people to ask questions live. James asks, could you talk a bit about how to best dissolve the sense of solidity and heaviness? Nice. Sure. There's a lot of ways to quote unquote do this. Different kinds of inquiries, ways to investigate your experience through analysis, essentially, like direct observational analysis, but also through very other kinds of avenues like surrender, letting go, things like that. But I'll very specifically do my best to deconstruct what you're asking for. And I think you're added the word heaviness, not just solidity. So for me, that assumes that you're also talking about sort of an emotional denseness when the guidance system is kicking in and you're misinterpreting the guidance system as usual. And then the sense of being physical and being on this 3D little planet and feeling extra heavy that day, then combined with your emotional panties in a twistness, there's this sense of heaviness. Really, the way to deconstruct anything is to look it straight in the eyes, so to speak, to look it straight at it. Because everything is a myth. So the sense of solidity and the sense of heaviness is equally so a myth. A myth is something that only exists as a story, you could say. Something that is pointed to, that is alluded to, that is referenced time and time again. However, no one's ever found Poseidon. So Poseidon is a myth. Now, nobody's ever found a sense of solidity either. So the sense of solidity is a myth. No one's ever found the feeling of heaviness. So the feeling of heaviness is a myth. And you could literally repeat this sentence with every single object of perception you have ever known. Whether it's a thought, a relative, a simple physical object like a couch. You have never found a couch. So a couch is a myth. It consists of stories and references only. The idea of a couch, the reality, the supposed reality of a couch, literally exists inside of, or is an illusion, a hallucination that's produced solely by all the stories you've ever heard about a couch, all the reference points, all the ideas, the memories, the images, the assumptions, the words, and so on. You've never found an actual couch. Now, this sounds ridiculous to some, but you're familiar, most of you are familiar with my teachings to some extent by now. So you might understand that there is some more logic behind this. Your question is how to dissolve the sense of heaviness and the sense of solidity. Dissolve. Okay, to dissolve something, first it needs to exist. So dissolving something is a myth. You've never actually dissolved any sense of solidity. You've just referenced it that way. You've just thought about it in that way. You've just projected that image into your mind, if you want to call this space mind. So really, everything's a myth. Now, that being said, this is the context, but I understand that your day-to-day reality feels a certain way, looks a certain way, and you have to assume it is a certain way because that way you get to function in a certain way and live your life and follow your passion and do your thing and be on your journey and so on. So I will not take everything away from you in this session, I hope. But if that does happen, then rejoice at what remains instead of get nihilistic about what has been dissolved. Usually we only want to dissolve the nasty feelings, the heavy feelings, the solidity. But when we feel really nice and bright, we're not so interested in dissolving things. When we found our soulmate, we're not so interested in dissolving the relationship construct. But when our ex has left us and we're devastated, we'd love to dissolve the solidity of that relationship construct. So first of all, let us admit that we're a little biased, that we prefer pleasure over pain, we prefer comfort over risk and threat, and we've made up a whole bunch of stories and constructs around what even is comfort, what even is pleasurable. And we have defined certain sensations, certain perceptions, because really everything is a perception in awareness. We cannot really state anything else. Again, this ties into the context that everything is a myth. All we can really say about anything we've ever experienced is that it is a perception occurring to our power to know, the power to know that is intrinsic. It's an intrinsic awareness. It's this awareness which hears my voice right now without your mind even needing to try. I could speak a different language. You could not understand a word I'm saying, which maybe for some of you is true. I don't know. Maybe I do speak a different language a little bit. But let's say I actually spoke Chinese right now, assuming most of you wouldn't understand that, maybe a few would. Then you'd still be aware of what I'm saying. You just wouldn't be able to have concepts for it. But there's an intrinsic awareness that knows that I'm speaking. Whether or not your mind is understanding what I'm saying doesn't matter to this point. So right now there's an intrinsic awareness of your room, or the space you're in, or your car. Right now there's an intrinsic awareness of my voice. There's an intrinsic awareness of all your feelings. There's an intrinsic awareness of this typically distracting thought stream, sort of random associations and images and references and all these myths that we entertain. So we can't really say that we've ever found anything to really exist independent from it being perceived within our consciousness. Everything we know, have known, think about, think we knew, think we know, think we will know, it doesn't matter. You cannot find an exception to this rule that all that you know is knowingness within the knower, whatever that might be. Maybe a question for a different day. But everything you know exists only, or at least we can only conclude for sure, that what's happening right now and ever is I, whatever I is, this knowing principle, this aware being, aka I knows, period. Now, and then you could add, okay, I know this or that thing, but that's already a reference point. Because what is a thing? What is a thing? What defines a thing? Our life appears to be made up of things. We're constantly myth-telling, storytelling about all these things. But if we stay close to the presence of our awareness now, this intrinsic awareness, life becomes more dreamlike, and the things that appear to be things become more like a unified field or substance. Like in your dream, you're like, oh, well, there's this tree over there and this person over there, but I'm kind of aware of how this is all a dream. It's all like the tablecloth analogy I think I used a couple weeks ago. The tablecloth is one, but you can pinch the tablecloth, pull it up at different points, and you create those mountain shapes in the tablecloth, and they can start looking at each other and talking to each other. All the while is a single field. Now, even a field is a myth. No one has ever found a field, aside from a thought about a field, the word field, some produced image of a field, but really even the field of consciousness is just another perception, another myth, another occurrence, an appearance in intrinsic awareness. This is I'm kind of describing what it's like to be in a state of equanimity, to be equanimous with all things, to be equal to all things, on even keel with all things, seamless with all things, non-dual with all things. Then we insert inclinations or biases or preferences that we derive from myths, from storytelling, from ideas. We think something really is a particular way, such as the sense of solidity means I'm solid, or the sense of solidity doesn't feel good, or the sense of solidity indicates unenlightenment, or the sense of solidity means this or that, or the sense of heaviness means I'm doing something wrong, or the sense of heaviness is negative, or the sense of heaviness needs to go in order for me to feel free. Those are all myths. Those are all assumptions. Nothing in your present experience confirms any of that make-believe, any of those myths. None of them are confirmed or affirmed or evidenced or proven at all by your direct experience. So we need to, first of all, we need to exist within a mental realm. We need to be actively mentating. Mentating. This is a mental universe. In order for us to then experience that universe as sort of solid, real, distinct, and so on. So a freedom from all this duality and non-equanimousness, non-equanimity, depends on thoughts. Non-duality does not depend on a thought. It doesn't even depend on a spiritual practice or getting it right or understanding this or transcending. In essence, in truth, in reality, right now you are beyond any of these dualities, even the spiritual ones like being and non-being, emptiness, nothingness, fullness, everythingness. All these extremes, in truth, none of these extremes are actually true. We could say the only thing that's true is that the nature of all of this is somehow one thing, one being. And if it's only one, then where is the conversation of being or non-being? Solidity versus lightness, heaviness versus pleasure, perhaps. These conversations happen where? In thoughts. So if you can pause your thinking for a second, that's a sure way to access non-duality, which is also just a myth. But we got to use some words, I guess. But you're accessing what remains in the absence of thought. It's that which is always the case. It never changes. It never goes anywhere. But when you pause your thinking, and yet you remain alert, you can then become realized in what is already true. You can then become aware of what is already true. And realization simply means you become aware of something. I realize I forgot my keys at home. That's me becoming aware of the fact that I forgot my keys, that I left my keys at home. So self-realization, capital S, or truth realization, or reality realization, or oneness realization, to use a bunch of other myth-like words. Inevitably, I have to use some words. Self-realization thus then means I become aware of the self. It's that simple. So every moment that you become aware of, let's call it being or existence, as it is, when you're not adding anything by use of the mind. And all can do this for 2 to 5 seconds. Hence the formula, 2 to 5 seconds, at least 12 times a day, preferably once an hour, but 12 times a day will get you very far. Where you just pause. You just stop your reference towards, for instance, solidity. Let's say you feel heavy. And this is all context for getting to your question. Let's say awareness, in your case, I, the sense of I exist, perceives, knows of, is aware of a supposed sensation that we're labeling heaviness. I mean, there's a whole bunch of assumptions in there to even produce that sense that there's really something there that's solid or heavy. It requires a lot of assumptions, a lot of mentation, a lot of myths, a lot of storytelling, all compounding upon one another. It requires an image, it requires a sensation, it requires referencing the image, it requires referencing the sensation, it requires referencing everything you've ever learned about distinctions between heaviness and lightness. Then there's all these other value judgments like heaviness is wrong, lightness is good or spiritual. Heaviness means I'm depressed, and lightness means that I'm happy. And on and on and on it goes. So all these assumptions together, all these mentations, create the sense, the illusion of the reality of solidity, or perhaps when you add some negative emotions into the mix, it starts to feel like a heaviness. First of all, again, I want you to see from a more absolute point of view that this is not true. You don't really feel solid. You just think you do. You don't really feel heavy, even when you do. When you feel heavy, when you're feeling what you would typically by all means call, I feel heavy. I feel emotionally heavy, depleted, depressed, static, stationary. I don't want to get out of bed. I feel like a lump of dense flesh. Gravity feels like it's ×3 of normal. Even then, you're not experiencing any heaviness whatsoever. It's a complete thought-based illusion. That entire feeling exists inside the thought of that feeling, inside of your imaginative referencing of that feeling. And an easy way to check this is stop believing it, stop referencing it into being or into apparent being, because it's never really becomes being, it's just appearing to being. So what if you paused all of your references, all of your images, all of your ideologies about the heaviness and the solidity, and you Stay alert in this motionless, yet somehow vivid, lucid presence of being. And you don't indulge in the temptation to reference the heaviness and the solidity. In that presence of awareness of now, can you honestly say that you're actually experiencing a heaviness without referencing the heaviness? Again, yes, if you go and reference the heaviness when you're being present to awareness, you will start to experience the heaviness. But the whole question here is, can you experience heaviness without in any way, shape, or form referencing that heaviness? I'm showing you have total control over your reality with this little tool, if you get this. If you really get this, it's even the end of emotional guidance system. If you were to hypothetically apply this all the time, 24/7. Because the emotional guidance system guides you to what I'm guiding you to right now. So I guess I'm your emotional support dog. Trying to bark your way back to the one.
Massaro University is a vibrant online community dedicated to accelerating your awakening and activating your purpose for the benefit of all. Join live sessions with Bentinho and workshops led by experienced facilitators. Deepen your wisdom, empowerment, and self-knowledge, and experience life-changing shifts week after week. At Massaro University, finding like-hearted seekers is easy and inevitable. Lifelong friendships and a shared purpose fuel profound personal and collective growth. Create your free account today at massaro.university and step into a community that's designed to elevate every aspect of your life.
I understand this is tricky, this is subtle, right? This is not the kind of stuff you talk about with your neighbor. But you're here with me. And I would like you to find out if you can experience solidity or heaviness without referencing it, without mentating it, without imagining it first. Can you find the experience you're referencing outside of the reference? Or, in other words, can you experience whatever experience you've been referencing today that's been bothering you, perhaps, or the last few years, who knows? Whatever you've been referencing that's been bothering you, whether it's a sense of heaviness or negativity, and so on, can you, if you pay clear, close attention to the now, to I am that I am, to I aware being, which is all you can say for real, is here. Undeniably so, intrinsic awareness is. Now, can you find the experience? Let's take the negative types. Can you find the negative, heavy experiences you've been referencing without referencing to them, without making any reference towards them? So again, if your mind kind of goes like, okay, I'm present, but yeah, I can still feel the heaviness in my body, you're not getting the point. That means you're still referencing the heaviness in the body. I'm saying, don't think about the heaviness in the body. Don't reference it. Don't point to it with your imagination. But the power of mind, the shaping, dynamic power of mind. Don't reference the heaviness at all. In fact, don't reference anything at all. If you stay aware of what remains, even if it's for 2 to 5 seconds, you are realizing the self. This is not a weird, long, 20-year journey. At least not the awakening of it. Maybe some of the integration elements, take millions of years, but the awakening to the reality doesn't take a lot of time. In fact, it requires no time. That's its requirement, to not reference anything. And references produce the idea, the experience of time. So one way this is the most absolute way to deconstruct something, the most direct way. But some people believe, they start referencing that they cannot do this. And therefore they experience the illusion, the myth that they cannot do this. So what to do? Well, stop referencing that. But what are you going to do if you have a reference point that suggests you can't do that either? Then I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'll try some more other ways as well for those who want to continue to reference the fact that they cannot just do this. If you really want to reference that, because it feels so good somehow, the reference, I can't do something, it's not up to me, then maybe I can indulge you a little bit in that world and offer you some tools that somehow trigger in you the reference that I can do that one. Okay? So we can play with your preferences, your inclinations, and your biases to give everyone something that they wish to reference that they can do. But I did just give you sort of a master key here, which is, first of all, the realization that everything is a myth. In other words, everything is a reference only. Whatever appears to exist appears only in your referencing. It appears only in your imagination, in other words. If you stop imagining altogether, stop referencing altogether, in the questioner's case, the sense of solidity and the sense of heaviness, do you still experience them? No, you can't, because heaviness is a reference. Solidity is a reference, a mental reference. So if you can somehow get yourself, your eye, your awareness, beyond or behind that causal point of origin, where reference points, assumptions, where delusion begins, if you can stay at the threshold between where you first produce a sensation or an image or a reality, and you can back up slightly more, just an inch more, before that causal plane of this couch and this sensation and my life and my name, if you can stay put, if you can reel yourself back, become so present that you suck all the oxygen out of the room of the mind, you become motionless, like a 50 billion year old rock that's never moved an inch in its lifetime. If you can stop all motion, all mentation, all delusion, all references, all BS, all self-indulgence, all self-doubts, all thoughts, for just a few seconds. I'm not going to expect you to be able to maintain this for a minute. That's quite difficult. But you can do it with a profound sense of will for 2 to 5 seconds. Everyone can do this. So simply stop the reference point that you can't do this. Stay put before that. Then in that, what to the mind, the thinking mind, appears to be sort of a nothingness. In that no-thingness, that mythless, because what's the opposite of a myth? It's reality. So when we stop all myth creation, we end up with reality. And in reality, I guarantee you, there is no sense of solidity and there is no sense of heaviness. But there's also no spiritual naked horse riding on a white, beautiful horse on the beach and having the time of your life. That also is a myth, unfortunately. I wish that was reality and the heaviness was the myth. But this beautiful naked white horse ride session on the beach with your knight in shining armor is also a myth. It also exists solely and exclusively. It appears to you due to how you're referencing it, how you're imagining it. All is imagination. This is what is meant when the sages say Everything is mental. This universe is mental. And when you believe in this mental universe as if it's real, then you become mental. Kind of look at it that way. So the illusion is neutral, but when it's believed in, it becomes delusion, right? Maya is neutral, but when you believe in Maya as if it's real, it becomes samsara, it becomes suffering, it becomes delusion. Same with your horse riding experience, same with your chocolate, but same with your sense of heaviness and solidity. So it's kind of all or nothing. And not many people like this proposition because they would love to dissolve the sense of heaviness and they love to get lazy with reality when their dreamy experience is full of pleasure. The last thing you want to do when your dream is manifesting is realize yourself. Am I right? It's the farthest thing from your mind. You'd rather die maybe even than realize the self when you're finally riding this horse on the beach with your knight in shining armor, pouring liquid chocolate into your mouth. Who thinks about 2 to 5 seconds then? Nobody. It's not until you start suffering pretty badly at the whim of your own samsaric beliefs, forgetting that reality as you know it is experienced only within your reference point, and that the reality as is actually real, the freedom that is innate, is beyond the illusion. It's the space that holds the illusion, that enables the illusion, that allows for the illusion, but its nature is distinctly different. So anyway, you get the point. We're biased, which makes the spiritual journey bumpy. I'll be honest. It makes your spiritual success, so to speak, your realization success, unsteady. Causes all the ups and downs. The 1 step forward, 2 steps back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I've already realized this. Why is it still happening to me? All these things. And that's fine. It seems to be one way that we want to learn in this life, but it doesn't have to be that way. Your spiritual journey, your ascension, if you will, your realization can be more steady. It can be a gradually, more and more exponentially ascendant curve. Instead of like, up to you. But it requires you to let go a little bit of your attachment to your dreams. It requires some equanimity, some maturity, some stability, a desire for what's real and truthful, and to connect more to that consciously, to realize more of that in an aware way. Then you desire to get lost from dream, to hope, to disappointment, to fear, to hope, and so on. So the more feverish you are about attaining what you want to attain, typically the more bumpy your self-realization ride will be. And that's fine. We all learn in different ways according to our preferences, inclinations, and references. But I did just give you another master key, not to boast here, but I see it as a master key, which is stop all thoughts and realize what remains. It's so simple. So bless the heaviness, because without the heaviness, you'd be enjoying chasing a horse riding session on the beach right now. You'd be completely lost, chasing your pleasure. Whereas due to the heaviness and the solidity, you might actually be paying attention to the master key. You might actually be giving that a shot. You might actually be feeling some devotion towards that path, towards that opportunity, some commitment. You might feel drawn in to that practice, to spend some time with yourself, to really explore this. What remains when I stop referencing everything? And can I wake up there? Can I turn the light bulb on in there? I know I've turned on the light bulb within my dream, at least to an extent. It might be a bit of a dim light some days, brighter light on some other days. But you can see your dream. You can see the couch. You can see your heaviness. You can see your solidity. You can see your partner. You can see your horse ride. You can see your negative emotions. So clearly the light's been turned on. You are awake in your dream to some extent, depending on the moment of presence, the level of presence in the moment. However, Can you turn the light on in a room that you've never before turned the light on in? You don't know what it looks like. You have no reference point for it. But can you turn the light of awareness on, the light of alertness, the light of awakeness on, in the nothingness that remains when you don't reference anything outside of being in the moment? Can you turn the brightness up in that dimension of being? Can you stay put there for a moment, or for a short moment many times, and try to see, try to turn on your eyes in this dimension where you've been shutting your eyes for so long? It's like waking up in a domain that's not quite here as you know it. It's not quite here. It's not here in your room right now. It's not here within your body right now. It's not here in this world right now. It's not here. It's not in this dimension. It's one way to think of it. Ultimately, it's all one, and it exists within the oneness. So you can never get lost. There are no dimensions, and all these things are all myths and references. But for the sake of your mind, which is used to a sense of direction, a sense of location, a sense of causality, and so on, you can almost imagine awakening to be like, I'm awakening elsewhere. It's not here. I can't find my awareness here, even though it's right here. But it's not going to be in this room, is what I'm saying. You won't be able to find awareness here right now with your senses. You got to kind of stop all that because you're inside of a video game world of your imagination in reference points. You're literally breathing and living and moving your muscles inside of a very complex array of references, mental references. So you're not going to find reality in the world, is what I'm saying. And it's not true either that it's outside of the world or some other location. So that's not really what I'm saying. But as a permission slip for your mind to sort of connect to this, it can be really helpful to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to turn the light up on myself, capital S. The existence that is pure and true and real and changeless and that remains, that's somehow hidden in plain sight, but I can't see it with my eyes. I can't hear it with my ears. I can't taste it with my tongue, and so on. I can't even think about it with my mind. I can't even picture it with my imagination. Even my most expanded imagination is not reality. It's just more imagination. So therefore, what I truly am cannot be found in any of this. It's not, in other words, here. What I'm used to referencing is here. I'm not going to find it here. Somehow I have to go beyond here. I have to stop referencing here and turn the light bulb on in this dark infinite space that's not really dark, but it's dark because I've closed my eyes there. I've turned the lights off there. And I've turned the lights on in my imagination. But what empowers, what enables the power of imagination to even exist? That comes from a dimension of being that's far deeper. It's non-causal. It's not caused. It's not created. Therefore, it never changes in essence. Its nature is eternal. Can you try to turn the light of awareness on in that no-thingness until you can see clearly the awareness which permeates the nothingness? And then you will no longer call it nothingness. It's just the mind that calls the absence of what it knows nothingness. But it's reality. When you turn the light up inside of this nothingness, you will see reality, the reality of self, capital S. All right, enough on that. A more relative way to dissolve the sense of solidity is to simply analyze it to death. So what I just taught you is the absolute way to dissolve anything by realizing that, first of all, you need to produce something in references before you can then reference the dissolution of it. So the truth is beyond all that. You're already free. The truth is already the truth. You are already free from this world, completely. Even in the midst of it, you might be having a dialogue with 10 people at the same time. You might be having all your traumas compound. And in reality, you are free, you are unblemished, you are unburdened, you are stainless, you are changeless, you are timeless. You are absolutely unaffected by all that appears, because all that appears is nothing but bogus ideas made of nothing but imagination. And imagination cannot touch awareness. It can fill awareness up with a fireworks display, but fireworks do not actually affect the space in which they explode. Similarly, somewhat differently, but somewhat similarly, no matter what you are currently mentating, deluding yourself into creating, whatever myth you think is real right now. Oh, I feel this way. No, you don't. You think you do. That's why the belief is formed. But in reality, okay, you don't feel the way you feel right now. Isn't that grand news? Because don't you feel some degree of stuck? Don't you feel some degree of limited? Even when you're riding that horse naked, with wine in your hand, galloping on this beautiful beach during sunset, with your knight in shining armor behind you, making sure you don't fall off of this horse. Wait, what was my point? I forgot anyway. You get the point that I forgot. As long as you remember the point, I think we're good. So, but okay, that's the master key. Let's move. It's hard to move away from the master key. Let's assume some degree of illusion. Let's be okay with that. Let's tolerate some degree of illusion. Meaning, where we're unaware that things are myths, that we actually believe, well, my feelings are actually my feelings. And this couch is actually a couch and it independently exists. Let's agree to some degree of that. Then another way to begin to dissolve this sense of solidity and heaviness when you're feeling those is to just really go into them with presence. So avoidance is never going to work. And what I just taught you is different than avoidance. Let's just be clear on that. Okay, avoidance requires you to first believe that the sensation is real. Then if you try to ignore it, you're typically bypassing or avoiding or shoving it under the rug or blaming it on someone else or being unwilling to face the sensation. But if you understand that the sensation is unreal and is already not affecting you, you just think it does. But if for 2 to 5 seconds you stop assuming that it's affecting you, you will see it's not affecting you. That was a myth. The idea that you were affected by thoughts, sensations, solidity, heaviness, stuckness, location, other people, ideas, actions, motivations is unreal. Even your own desires don't disturb you. In reality, when you see that, yes, your sensation disappears from view. Or if it's somehow there, it's seen as unreal. That's not avoidance. That's self-realization. That's the most aware you can be of the reality of yourself. Avoidance needs you to first really buy into this sensation is real and it's threatening and it's affecting me. The I, the me capital M, the me within you is somehow assumed to be affected by an emotion. When it's so clear, all you have to do is stare into a mirror for 10 seconds, look into your eyes, and ask yourself, has this power which knows that I'm staring in the mirror right now ever truly changed from when I was 8 years old staring in the mirror? Has any emotion over the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years ever truly put a dent in my awareness? Or is this power to know still as spacious, as free, and as present as it's ever been? Not your thoughts and emotions, but the power to know. It has never changed, it's never been affected, and you've had so many emotions. You've experienced so many apparent limitations, and none of it has ever touched you. It's not even left a little scratch. There's no PTSD in awareness, okay? It's like there's no PTSD in pure space. Comets don't leave a trace in pure space. They don't etch anything out of pure space. Pure space is stainless. Awareness is stainless. Everything you think is so real and heavy and dense and scary and threatening and that you need to avoid because you don't like how it feels is unreal. Self-perpetuate. It's mental. Don't be a mental patient. Get real. Be someone real. But if you do believe in the illusion, then one thing you can do, one other approach, is to bring as much presence. You know presence, right? This feeling of bringing your mindfulness into the present moment. And then it comes with sort of a feeling of the presence of an energy field, or the presence of a consciousness, a mindfulness, an awareness. So you can make that presence nice and thick, meaning just be really present, and zoom in, if you will, on the sensation of solidity or heaviness. As if with this sort of field or cloud of presence, present consciousness, you're entering into what you have been assuming and referencing is the sensation of solidity or heaviness. So try to find that solidity or heaviness if you can. If you really do this properly, you won't be able to find it. But if you're not quite so present that you won't be able to find it, and you can kind of find the sensation of heaviness, which means you're not fully present yet, but then bring that sort of half-assed presence that you do have into the other half-assed illusion of the sense of heaviness, and see if you can intensify the presence aspect. Make that more 100%. And just by staying present with the sensations that are assumed and imaginary, the imagination will, if not dissolve or change, it will then at least show itself to be empty and without any actual threat. And often these feelings of solidity and heaviness are sort of emotional defense mechanisms, creating a sense of resistance and heaviness and location because we fear that somehow we can be affected. So if you can't apply the master key because you insist on the reference point that suggests that you can't, by all means, free will and all, then my next best recommendation would be to bring your presence into the sensation that you think exists somewhere. I'll give you one more tool, which is kind of in between the two, and I've sort of already mentioned it, but specifically what you can do is you can ask yourself, can I actually go and find the heaviness? I assume that it's there, but let me go and find it. Let me actually go and find the heaviness, like a miner mining for gold inside a rock. So within the field of your perception, you say there is a sense of heaviness. You made that up. But okay, let's say it's actually there, then try to at least find it. Confirm its existence outside of your own thinking. So you go as hard as you can, or as clearly as you can, which means be as relaxed as you can. You go and look for the actual heaviness. Is it 2 inches to the left of your solar plexus? Is it dead center of your solar plexus? Is it out here sort of in your aura? And if so, exactly where? Go exactly to where is the heaviness. And what is it made of? Is it made of aluminum? Is it made of onyx? What is the sense of solidity made of? Can you find its material? Well, good luck. The more you do this, the more presence you bring into the illusion, and the more presence you bring into the illusion, the less you'll be able to find the illusion, because you're myth busting. By looking for the thing you think is real and is bothering you directly, by looking for it as precisely and directly as you can, you are actively myth busting. You're popping those myths out of your sense of reality. Advanced stuff, but I think you guys can do this. I think, which is just a reference point, meaningless, shouldn't mean anything to you, that you can do this. But what do you think? Do you think you can dissolve the sense of solidity at will? I think you can. But whatever you think will be so. If you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can, you can. And if you think neither, then it doesn't matter and it's already dissolved. So this is a little bit of a class in deconstructing. I hope you guys will benefit from this. I know I spent a lot of time on this topic, but it was fun. Okay, one or two more questions from here, and then I'll take some of the live participation. And I might need a little pee break in between. Hannah is asking, since everything is the creator and we don't own anything, should we just chill in the I am and not try to do anything else out of personal doership? Well, yes and no. I would say, this is my view, obviously create your own if you wish. But energetically speaking, I do recommend you learn to just chill in the I am and not try to do anything else out of personal doership. However, as sort of a philosophical life statement of like a life philosophy or an approach to life, this can be interpreted in different ways. And it sounds a little complacent. It sounds a little lazy. So it depends a little bit on how you define this or how you view this, because it's a little bit of a subtle subject. When you say, should we just chill in the I am? Well, yes. And not try to do anything else out of personal doership? Well, yes. But this doesn't mean that no action happens. It doesn't mean no inspiration flows. It doesn't mean you don't get out of bed and brush your teeth and take care of your loved ones. So it depends a little bit on what's the connotation, what's the association that you have with this reference point of chilling in the I am and not doing anything out of personal doership. But if it's clean, if your understanding is clean, then yes, just seeing that everything is the creator and that we don't own anything will naturally settle into the I amness. And that I amness will naturally begin to flow through your body and your mind in the form of movement, inspiration, gravitation, electromagnetism, intelligence, skillfulness, timing, execution of pure actions. For no outcome, no personal doership needs to be involved. You can chill in the I am and act your ass off, is what I'm saying. So it depends on what you mean a little bit in your own mind by not do anything else out of personal doership. So not do anything else, no, but not do anything else out of personal doership, ideally, yes. But when you're chilling in the I am, that is natural. You're not doing things out of that sense of personal doership. So yes, with a little nuance there, a little caveat. I read this question earlier. I didn't quite understand what exactly you're asking for, Michael. As you feel into this healing field before you, what is the essence cue you would most desire to share with us? I guess you're just asking me to download something relevant for all of us here now that is perhaps of a healing nature. But if you mean something more specific, then I'm not following exactly what you mean. So as you feel into this healing field before you, what is the essence cue you would most desire to share with us? That you've never been sick in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you for watching this Bentinho live session. Bentinho now hosts these transformative live sessions completely free, offering profound insights and guidance to support your journey. To attend the next live session with Bentinho, simply visit massaro.university and follow the instructions to create your free account.